nice. Got an infected ear. Is that nice? Yeah. He knows he has like
How cute is that dog, man? Indy, she is the cutest. Do you know what? She's so affectionate. Every time you walk into a room, she's got to be next to you. Every time you sit in the sofa, she's got to be touching you. Honestly, I absolutely love her. I can't even lie. So yeah, that's one of my dogs, Indy. I've actually got another one, her mother, called Poppy as well. But she wasn't in the clip. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've got 2 German Shepherds. But yeah, we've got an interesting video coming up today. But the first thing I need to say, because I say it in all episodes, yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. The first thing to say, hope everyone's well. But international break, I'm sick of it already. Newcastle were just starting to build momentum. 2 wins on the bounce. And I was thinking, yes, we can really gather some momentum, get the players used to playing with each other. But no, we'll get hit with an international break. I've said this before. Why don't we, right? There's 2 things we hate. Managers and the football clubs hate the transfer window going into the Premier League season from the summer. We all hate the international break disrupting the Premier League season. So why not move the Premier League season backwards, have the international break before the Premier League starts, both of them together, and that means you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. 1, the transfer window doesn't go into the Premier League, and 2, the international break doesn't break up the Premier League, so it can just continue this rhythm of the Premier League. That's too much common sense, isn't it? Although I have read that they are thinking about incorporating these 2 international breaks together, which I think will be the best thing. Second thing I want to ask, do you like the little purple? You're probably sitting there thinking, why purple? Well, 1, purple is an underrated colour. 2, no Premier League team plays in purple. If I use red, you could say that's Liverpool, Nottingham Forest. If I use blue, you could say that's Chelsea. If I use black or white, it's defeating the object. So actually, I don't mind the purple. Gives me videos a little bit of something. Do you know what I mean? Instead of just white walls, there's a little bit of something. Right, I'm just yapping on here. So let's tell you what's coming up in the video. I want to talk about clickbait images. And is Osula actually going to leave in January? Then Anthony Elanga has been speaking about Eddie Howe and saying he's the best coach he's ever had. Anthony Gordon's been comparing Woltemessi to Harry Kane. Somebody has come out and said Sandro Tonali is the best midfielder in the Premier League. So I'm going to give you my thoughts. Then Opta has predicted the Premier League table. So we're going to look at where Newcastle United are likely to finish, the percentage of chance of getting back into the Champions League, or dare I say the percentage of chance of winning the Premier League title. The very first thing I want to do is talk about how headlines and images can be misleading, because I came across this headline that said Newcastle United given an early transfer warning, a striker attracting Champions League interest. First of all, our strikers are playing in the Champions League, but then it's got a picture of Woltemessi underneath. So undoubtedly, I expected this to be about Woltemessi. However, so I clicked on the article and I scrolled down a little bit, and it's actually about William Osula going to Eintracht in January. So they used Woltemessi's image just to clickbait people, and yes, I fell into the trap. But the article goes on to say how Newcastle United are relying on Woltemessi hitting form because Johan Wissers had another injury setback, which is true. And then it goes on to say, according to sources in Germany, interest in William Osula remains from Eintracht, reportedly deal to do in January. And this is why I wanted to talk about it, because personally I think every team needs 3 strikers. Especially in this day in football, especially when you're playing Champions League football. We've literally got a 3-day turnaround every single game. Now that we know Johan Wissers injured and probably going to AFCON, we cannot afford to let William Osula leave in January. Do I think William Osula is going to hit 20 goals a season right now? No, absolutely not. But do I think he's got a part to play in our squad? Absolutely. Do I think he's improved? Yes, you can see that. So with more time on the training pitch under Eddie Howe, William Osula is just going to get better. And do you know what else? I'm just going to say it. He looks like he wants to be Newcastle United. He looks like he wants to play for Newcastle United. Give me a player that wants to be at the club over anybody. Doesn't matter if he's a little bit raw around the edges, a little bit rough around the edges. I can deal with that. We can grow that. We can improve that. Give me a player that fights for this badge, and I see that in William Osula. Looks like he wants to be here, so that's a positive as well. But the crux of all this is we cannot afford to let William Osula leave. If we let him leave, we're going to have to bring somebody else in. So what happens if Johan Wissers out in AFCON, Woltemessi gets injured or suspended? Let's say Harvey Barnes is injured at the same time. What do we do there? So for me, even though people might not rate William Osula, and I understand people might not rate him highly or think he's going to hit 10 goals a season or even double figures in the Premier League. I get that logic. When it comes down to raw attributes, William Osula's got it all. Power, pace, strength, size, technical ability, two-footedness. He just needs to understand the game and its moments a little bit better. Just think about it. Players peak at different times. Just because he's not the world's best striker now, this isn't me saying he's going to become the world's best striker, but doesn't mean he can't hit form very soon. Especially under a manager like Eddie Howe that has got a proven track record of improving players. And from what I've seen of William Osula now, from when he first joined, Eddie Howe has definitely improved his game. And speaking about improving his game, that's a good segue into my next point, because Anthony Elanga has been speaking to the Swedish media about his start at Newcastle United. And I'm going to read out what he says because I actually agree with him. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's about staying focused. I know how good I am and how good I can be. When I get the chance, I have to take it. When a goal comes, it will click. It's a new system, new players. They will get comfortable with me and I with them. Now, the bits in yellow, quite pleasing to hear because he spoke about Eddie Howe and he said, Eddie Howe, is a fantastic coach who I am learning from. For me, he is the best coach I ever had. He went on to say he helps me a lot on and off the field and I feel like I'm getting better and that's the most important thing. We have played 10 games, started 6 of them. We will have 60 games this year and the coach is smart and knows what he's doing. The way we play takes a lot of strain on the body. It requires intensity. Eddie Howe tries to keep everybody fresh and ready. We have won games and that's the most important thing. I actually love those comments from Anthony Elanga. I'll tell you why. Reason number one is because very rarely does somebody speak about a manager like that until after their careers and say that's the best manager I've ever had. So he must really trust and like Eddie Howe, which is nice to hear as a football fan. But 2, the first thing you want from your footballer when he moves to another club is for him to understand that it might take time. I bet it's hard for him to watch Nick Woltemessi score goals and provide assists and be the fan favourite. I bet it's hard for him because he's probably sitting there thinking, I want to provide assists. I want my goal contribution so everybody thinks I'm the next big thing. So it's quite difficult for him. So then you start psychologically thinking, is it ever going to come off for us? But the fact that he can sit there and understand that, yes, it might take time because 1, I've got to adapt to another system. 2, I'm adapting to a new environment. 3, I'm not the same type of profile as a right winger as they had last season. So of course, Anthony Elanga's got to adapt to us, but we've also got to adapt to him. So the fact that he can sit there and understand that, yes, he might not have scored, but it doesn't mean he's a failure. He's only started 6 games for us. And let's be honest, football fans these days, and I'm not aiming this at you guys because genuinely when I read your comments, I kind of think you guys have common sense, but football fans these days are too reactionary. How often have I said, just because one player doesn't work out with one club, doesn't mean it won't work out with another club. It doesn't mean he's a bad player. And just because a player doesn't hit the ground running, again, doesn't mean he's a bad player. So this is what I've wrote on Anthony Elanga, because in my opinion, of course, he needs to be given time. And in my opinion, it hasn't been as bad as some people make out. And you've got to think about it. He plays slightly different to what Jacob Murphy played last season. So although he's got to adapt to our style, we've also got to adapt to his style. And I actually think he's shown flashes. Against Barcelona and Union Saint-Gilloise, he was our most dangerous outlet. And he might be right. As soon as he gets that first goal, it could just be a psychological unlock that he needs. So hopefully that goal will come against Brighton in the next game and then everything's just plain and sailing from there. But he's right about Eddie Howe as well, because you look at the players that Eddie Howe's transformed over the years. It's absolutely remarkable. Right, let's make this clear. Is he going to transform Anthony Elanga into a small space, tight space magician that can break down low blocks? No, he's not. Is he going to make him a better player in terms of understand the game, what the game needs, movement off the ball, decision making on the ball, having a little bit more composure on the ball? Absolutely believe so. But that takes time. Takes time on the training pitch, but also takes time on the football pitch. When it comes to Anthony Elanga's style, you've got to expect a little bit of inconsistency. He's a player that acts on instincts and improvisations. So naturally, not everything will come off for him. When you compare Anthony Elanga, a player that relies on instincts and raw pace, to a player that is more reliant on possession-heavy build-up, it's completely different. Because a player that's more reliant on possession-heavy build-up understands his next move before it even comes off. So what I'm trying to say, guys, although Anthony Elanga hasn't scored, I'm quite satisfied with the way he started. Has everything been perfect? No. Did I expect it to be perfect? No. So let's just back the lad, because confidence is a major factor in a player that plays on instinct. Speaking about players that play off instincts, that's another segue into my next point, because Anthony Gordon has been speaking to the English media and he actually compared Woltemessi to Harry Kane. And according to this article, Anthony Gordon dropped a headline and grabbing comparison with the Bayern Munich talisman Harry Kane. So what he went on to say is, I think they do play a very similar style of football in terms of they want to almost be the quarterback. They want to come in and create. They don't just finish chances like a typical striker would do. For me personally, I think it helps my game. I think my style suits playing with that style of striker because I can run off him. If a defender wants to go in and engage, I can run off the back. So I think it's really a positive for me and I really enjoy it. Again, I love this because this duo is massively important to our success this season. So they need to understand each other's games, and to get the practicality, first of all, you need to understand the practical. So in order for a partnership to flourish, the first thing you need to do is understand each other's game, and then what comes after that is putting it into practice. So what I'm trying to say is, without the understanding, the practicality won't happen. Understand your teammates' profile and game is so important in this day in football because it's all about patterns of play and setting up plays and breaking down the opposition structured defense. So when you understand your teammates' movement, what he likes to do, what he's going to do, that just instantly reduces the risk of making the wrong decision. But it also helps you make the better decision before the defender can react. So I like this maturity from Anthony Gordon. This also kind of shows he's not all in it for himself, because sometimes he will have to compromise to help Woltemessi, and he can only compromise by help understand his game. And I'm going to say it, a front three of Anthony Elanga, Woltemessi and Anthony Gordon is exciting. That can be devastating in transition moments, and we do our best work in transition moments. Now, I kind of feel like Eddie Howe is going to a little bit more control with the ball, but that's okay because it still doesn't take away from our creativity or transition moments. Now, if you look over that Barcelona game when we had Woltemessi on the pitch, Sven Botman on the pitch, Malik Chow on the pitch, Anthony Gordon on the pitch, that goal we scored was delightful. So we're starting to see the crux of what these can do together. And the more they play together, the better they'll become. We're seeing that against Union Saint-Gilloise in the Champions League. We literally tore them a new one. Then against Nottingham Forest, we were definitely the better side. But next year, you have like 3.29, which is incredible, especially when you're coming up against a team that just want to defend all game. So the more Eddie Howe works with these guys, the more these guys play together. I actually think it can be a really, really exciting front three. Speaking about exciting, another beautiful segue into my next point, because isn't it exciting when you have players that get called the best in the league? This isn't just any league. This is the best league in the world, the most difficult competitive league in the world. And when Paul Scholes speaks, you listen. If I was saying Sandro Tonali was better than Declan Rice, nobody would pay attention. But when somebody that's done it, won the lot, comes out and says Sandro Tonali is the best midfielder in the Premier League, you listen. So if anybody didn't know, speaking on the overlap, Paul Scholes literally said Sandro Tonali is better than Declan Rice. Now, I'm not going to sit here and compare the two, because if I'm being perfectly honest, the debate between Sandro Tonali and Declan Rice is subjective because they're both quality players, and he's just given his opinion, so it doesn't mean he's wrong, like the Arsenal fans tried to tell you. But let's read about what he's had to say. So he started with Alexis McAllister was brilliant last year. He controlled a lot of what Liverpool did, and they're missing that this year. Then he said Bruno Guimaraes is brilliant, and I love Sandro Tonali at Newcastle as well. Tonali especially, he can run. He's been brilliant. Now, this was the headline. I'd probably choose Tonali as the Premier League's best midfielder over Declan Rice. Tonali is better than Rice. He went on to say, I like Rice, don't get me wrong. He's got everything. There's too many times he takes too much touches off the ball. He tries to look a little bit more stylish than he needs to do. He's got physical attributes, great at being box to box and scores goals, but he just doesn't do it enough. The very first thing I want to say about this, isn't it nice to see Sandro Tonali finally getting some recognition? Something us Newcastle United fans have been saying for 2 years now. This guy has been simply incredible. So it's nice to see him getting some recognition, because you can see his demeanour. He's quite a quiet lad, isn't he? That's the way he comes across. But on the football pitch, he's an absolute animal. But on the flip side of that, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I don't want the media talking about him. I'd rather just wrap him up in cotton ball, let him go out on the pitch, do his thing, and then we'll just wrap him up and put him behind the scenes. I don't want Sandro Tonali in the headline. I don't want him in the media front. I don't want eyes all over Sandro Tonali. However, it's lovely to see him getting some recognition, the recognition he deserves. And I tell you what, guys, I'm not even going to sit in the fence on this. I actually agree with Paul Scholes. Like I literally said in yesterday's video, he walks into any midfield in the league. Now, the beauty about it, we're actually playing the Champions League, so if another team that's on par with us comes in for him, I don't actually think he would leave. I actually think the only reason Sandro Tonali leaves Newcastle United is if Real Madrid comes in for him, for example. So let's be perfectly honest. Instead of just competing in the Champions League, Real Madrid can offer him winning the Champions League. But let's say if a Man United came in for Sandro Tonali, he's not going there. And I actually think the lad's got some common sense not to go to Man United. But let's just look over Sandro Tonali, because I genuinely believe that he is the best midfielder in the Premier League. Signed for 50 million. Contract ends in 2028. And this is why I've spoke about the importance of a sporting director, because now is the time that we should start and open those negotiations, because when it gets 2026 summer, he's going to have 2 years left on his contract. We don't have a sporting director in discussing with these agents, saying we can offer you this, then he's going to sit and think they're not willing to up my wages, they're not willing to pay me more, because I can guarantee that if we get to a year left on his contract, he's going to sit there and say, well, you've underpaid me for the past 2 years, that's why you didn't offer me a new contract, because that's the way players think. So I actually believe we should be tying him down to another contract, as well as Sven Botman, because his valuation is just going up and up and up. We bought him for 50 million. On a new contract, we can sell him for 100+ million. I'm not saying we're going to sell him, but like, you've got to protect your assets. I always speak about Newcastle United. I always say we should enjoy these times, but you can still be critical and enjoy these times. So, yes, on the football pitch, we're excellent. I love watching us play. I love our style. I love our players. But behind the scenes, we haven't got it all right yet. And that's where my criticism comes. Doesn't mean I hate the club. Doesn't mean I hate the Saudis. Just means let's get our own house in order. Start looking at player care. Looking at contracts. Are we going to renew contracts? Are we going to offer new contracts? Are we going to sell them at peak times? Are we going to maximize their valuation? That's what I want us to do as a football club, because you'll never ever grow unless you're maximizing every single opportunity, especially when it comes to contracts. And especially when we've got PSR hovering around the club. So we've got to bring in a sporting director now, hopefully within the next month. And the reason why I say we should at least open negotiations, because these things take a long time. You wouldn't believe how long it takes. It's actually quite frustrating, because he wants this, he wants that, you want to do this, you want to do that, you're going back and forth. Like, it takes a long time. But also, I know for a fact what goes on behind the scenes. And if somebody is interested in Sandro Tonali, their agent will know about it. Yesterday, I can't say who, but I had know an agent that works for a Premier League club who are looking for a striker, a left centre-back, and a winger with specific attributes for January. However, what I'm trying to say is, I know that club has approached agents, and these are players that are under contract. So that club's went to their agents through a third party and said, we've got a little bit of interest in your player. What's the likelihood of that happening? Then that player's thinking, if I get an offer a new deal, I might reject it because this club wants us. Do you get where I'm going with this? It happens all the time. So we've got to get our own house in order, because in order to open negotiations, that doesn't happen from the player and the agent. That happens from the football club. So it's up to the football club to open and start those negotiations. But without a director of football, we're probably not even doing it. Another thing I'll add to that is, I don't want to bring this situation up, but I highly doubt he acts the same way as our old number 14. I think he's starting to realise and appreciate what he has. One, we stuck through him through thick and thin when he was suspended because of a betting ban. We still paid his wages, and I think he appreciates that. And I think he's starting to appreciate how much the fan base actually adore and love him. And the reason why I say he walks into any midfield in the league, because what can't he do on a football pitch? Firstly, he's a dual-phase midfielder, excels both in possession and out of possession. He doesn't just do one or the other. You get some players that are magnificent in possession but don't have that defensive grit. You have players that have that defensive grit but don't have the technical ability. Whereas Sandro Tonali has both. Positional flexibility, he can play as a number 6, he can play as a number 8, he can dictate tempo, he can press like a box-to-box midfielder because he's got the engine to do so, but he can also recover like a midfield destroyer, everything. And then ball progression, which is one of his most underrated qualities. He ranks in the top quartile for progressive carries and key passes among Premier League midfielders. And then spatial awareness. He has the ability to read second balls, anticipate passing lanes, and cover ground quickly, which makes him a huge defensive defensive asset without sacrificing his creativity. The best thing I'll say about Sandro Tonali, nobody will know how truly good he is if you don't watch him on the eye test. He passes every single eye test department like he is a special footballer. I want to hear your thoughts on Sandro Tonali because in my opinion, I'm not selling him. He is going nowhere, no chance. You know what the best thing I like about him? He just plays what the game needs. Even if that's keeping things simple, he understands what the game needs. That's a very rare quality. So good, man. And also, I like to see him get praised because I'm half Italian, so I like to see the Italian boys doing well. The final thing I want to end on is a little bit of fun because Opta has predicted the final Premier League table, and this is the outcome they come out with. Now, I know that's a little bit difficult to see, but Opta currently believe Newcastle's most likely finish is 6th this season. They've got Crystal Palace in at 5th, Bournemouth at 7th, Man United at 12th. No surprise there. But they also give us a percentage rating on how likely we are to finish back in the Champions League, but also win the Premier League title. And the chances for Newcastle United to win the Premier League title this season is 1.11%. That's going to be some Leicester story, that. But they also give Newcastle United a 21% chance of qualifying for the Champions League via a top 4 finish and 11% chance of ended up in the Europa League. So look, I'll ask you the question again. Would you be happy with a top 6 finish? If you offered me that now, would I take it? Oh, I don't know, man. Because I do believe that the likes of Crystal Palace will come away a bit like Nottingham Forest did last season. But I also believe that we're going to get better and stronger as the season goes on. So would I take it? Nah, I fancy my chances. Give me that 11% chance to finish in the Champions League. But I want to hear from you guys. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Even if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. But until next time, enjoy your day, and we're the lads.